The HOA thought they finally had me cornered. They marched onto my dock with clipboards, cameras, and a smug violation notice because I dared to fish on the lake I'd lived beside for 20 years. What they didn't know? I was already one step ahead because I didn't just fish here. I owned everything beneath their feet. Asterisk, when I first built my cabin on the north edge of Clearwater Lake, there was no HOA, no community board, no patrol cars cruising around, counting blades of grass. It was just peace, pine trees, quiet mornings, and the gentle ripple of fish teasing the surface. And then, 5 years later, the subdivision across the water formed an HOA, almost overnight. The lake filled with paddleboards, flotillas of children screaming, homeowners arguing about who could park where, and self-appointed HOA royalty marched around acting like they owned the place. They didn't, at least not my part. My cabin was built decades before any of their houses existed. My land was private. My shoreline was private. My dock was private. But entitlement doesn't care about facts, and no one embodied that. Entitlement more than Linda Holcomb, the HOA president, always wearing neon workout outfits, always carrying a clipboard, always glaring like squinting could make people obey her. One calm Saturday morning, I was on my dock with a cup of coffee in my left hand and a rod in my right, working a slow jig for bass. Fog drifted across the surface. Perfect silence. Then I heard the cough, that artificially loud ahem, that only people who think they're important ever make. Sir? Sir, Linda called, stepping onto my dock with 2 board members in tow. I didn't even look over. Morning, Linda. You're trespassing. You're violating HOA Section 14B, she snapped, as if reading a spell that should have frozen me in place. No fishing during HOA peak recreational hours. Linda, I said, setting my rod down, I'm not in your HOA. You don't control this dock. She raised her chin. The lake is a shared community resource. We govern the water. No, I corrected calmly. You govern the people who voluntarily joined your HOA. She thrust a yellow slip of paper at me. You are fined $500. And if you refuse to comply, we will escalate. I stared at the slip, then back at her. You're fining me for fishing on my own property? Yes, she said proudly. Maybe this will teach you to respect community rules. That was the moment something inside me flipped on anger. Not frustration, but amusement. Because she had no idea. No idea what I'd already discovered months earlier. No idea what I'd quietly been negotiating. No idea who actually owned the lake. I let her walk away feeling victorious. Because the real victory was already mine. Asterisk. Buying a lake isn't something you do by accident. It takes 2 things. An old obscure deed, a seller who doesn't realize what they own, and I found both. Months earlier, while researching property boundaries for some repairs, I stumbled across something in the county archives. Clearwater Lake was never transferred to the HOA, the community, or the state. It was still privately owned by an elderly ranching family who had inherited it generations ago. The HOA assumed the lake was public because the previous owner had allowed open use, but legally, financially, on paper, the entire lake was private property, and when I contacted the family 3 siblings, in their 70s, they practically laughed. You want the lake? One said, we've been paying taxes on that headache for years. You're doing us a favor. The price was shockingly low, and with my savings and investments, buying it was easy. The paperwork was signed. The county recorded it. Everything was notarized, finalized, and legitimate. But I waited. I didn't announce anything. I didn't build a gate. I didn't close anything down. I waited for the HOA to try something stupid, and, oh boy, did they. 2 days after the fishing fine, I received a second notice, then a third, then a summons to an HOA disciplinary hearing, which I didn't attend because, again, I wasn't a member. That made them furious. Linda stormed down to my cabin with 5 board members, a security guard, and a stack of papers clipped so aggressively it looked like she expected it to hurt me. You are an escalating violation of HOA rules, she barked. You are unlawfully fishing during restricted hours. I leaned against my railing. On my private shoreline. You're on our community lake, she corrected. I smiled slowly. Is that so? She thrust her chin in the air. We will fine you $2,000 per day until you comply. That was the moment I opened the manila folder I'd been saving for exactly this showdown. Inside was the deed, the lake boundary map, the tax assessments, the notarized purchase agreement, and a certified letter addressed to the HOA. I handed the top page to Linda. At first, her face went pale, then red, then purple. What is this? She whispered. That, I said pleasantly, is the document proving that I own Clearwater Lake. Every inch, every drop. Her jaw trembled. This lake is a shared it was. I interrupted. Until I bought it. One of the board members squeaked, What does that mean for us? I slid my sunglasses on. It means your HOA is using my lake without permission. Asterisk. The next morning, I enacted step 2. I hired a local company to install a steel gate, no trespassing signs, camera systems, a private access keypad, barbed barriers along the HOA's lake entry point, all perfectly legal on my land, and, yes, my land extended all the way around their community beach. By noon, the HOA descended in chaos. Residents shouted at me. Kids cried because their swimming area was fenced. Boaters demanded entry. Linda stormed up, waving her clipboard like it was a magic wand. "You can't do this," she screamed. "The HOA will sue you." "They're welcome to try," I said, "but you should read page 3 of the deed." She flipped through the papers. Her eyes widened. "No." She breathed. "Yes," I said. "The lake has always been private. The HOA has been illegally accessing it for 12 years. This meant several things immediately. Their beach area was trespassing. Their boat docks were trespassing. Their landscaping across the waterline was trespassing. And their HOA funds spent maintaining lake property. Illegal use of dues. Word spread like wildfire. Homeowners surrounded Linda, demanding answers. "You said we owned the lake. You said my boat slip was guaranteed. I spent $14,000 on a dock permit. Was that fake?" She tried to defend herself. She failed by afternoon. The board voted to remove her as president. By evening, the HOA attorney called me to negotiate restored access. I declined. Instead, I offered them a new contract. $4,500 per household per year for lake access. No fishing restrictions, no noise restrictions. No HOA authority on the lake. They were stunned. "That's outrageous," the attorney said. I shrugged. "You tried to fine me for fishing? Consider this my counteroffer." News traveled. Residents revolted, and within 2 weeks, over half the HOA refused to pay the new fees. The HOA begged, pleaded, threatened lawsuits, tried everything. Nothing worked, because they had no legal ground. And finally, after one brutal emergency meeting, they caved. They signed the contract. Every household now paid me directly. Every dollar went into my pocket. And every time I walked down to the water with my fishing rod, residents awkwardly looked away because their access depended entirely on staying on my good side. Linda eventually moved out of the neighborhood. Her house sold for $200,000, less than market value because she'd advertised it as a lake community home. It no longer was. It was a community near a lake that now belonged to me. Asterisk.